Welcome to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, a homeschool mom, entrepreneur, and educator with over 20 years of experience in the areas of elementary and special education. It's my mission to help you create lifelong learners and embrace a holistic approach to education at home. I'll be sharing practical strategies, inspiration, and resources to support your family. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a business owner, or balancing work and homeschool, you're in the right place to connect with a community that values education just as much as you do. Join us each week as we ditch the stress, embrace the joy of learning, and set your family up for a lifetime of success. Hey there, friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, your home education expert. First, I want to take a moment and say thank you so much for being here. I know that most of us are wrapping up a busy season of end of the year, lots of activities, lots of things, and rolling into summer, a little more time for freedom, fun in the sun, right? And I just want to thank you so much for bringing me along and for joining me each week. It means the absolute world to me. What I would love is I would love to connect with you personally. So if you have a moment, hop on over to the Home Education with Ease Facebook group. Join the Facebook group. Let me know that you heard about the Facebook group through the podcast. Say hello and let's get connected. And I want to know today, the big question and the big topic that we're going to talk about is pretty much what are you doing? It's a big transition time, right? Are you continuing the same route that you have gone this year, right? If you have homeschooled, are you going to continue to homeschool next year? Are you going to maybe change curriculums? Are you going to look for a different co-op? Are you going to find a co-op? Are you going to look for friends right? What does this look like? We're wrapping up 1 year, even if you go to school year round, like we do, right? I say that we do school year round, but over the summer, it's definitely a lot more relaxed and it's not as big of a workload, right? Even though the kids are still keeping their skills sharp and we read chapter books and we do projects, it's not as intense as it is September, August, September through May. So as we're coming up to this transition period, I would love to know in the Facebook group, what does this look like for you? If you homeschool, are you continuing? If you are in public school, are your kids continuing public school? If your kids are in public school and you think that there needs to be a change, what does that change look like? Does that look like homeschooling? Does that look like private school? Does that look like an online school? What does that look like? What about if you're homeschooling and you're like, you know what, this has not been working for us and we need to make a change? Let's talk about that. So what does that look like? Does that look like going back to public school or going into public school? Does that look like a private school, a co-op, a different curriculum, right? There's so many chances for us to make a change, right? So many things. And I think the question always is, what is the next best step for my family, right? Because there's so many decisions that we can make. And we could change up the curriculum and say, you know what? Nope, that didn't work. I have a friend and I talked to her and she would show me the curriculum that she's bought for homeschool. And she's like, I've spent thousands of dollars on curriculum and most of it I haven't even used. And I was appalled by this. And I was like, what? And she's like, because sometimes you buy a curriculum and you think, wow, this is great. And one, it doesn't work for your kids the way that you thought it would. It works for one kid and not for the other. Or it just was too complex. I remember I talked to a client and she said, I bought a curriculum for thousands of dollars and there was no instruction. I didn't know what to do with it. And I was like, whoa. She's like, so it sat there. I didn't even use it. So quick little plug for EduPlay Learning. If you are in that boat where you are looking for what is your next best step, feel free to reach out. Let's talk about what that next step can look like. So wherever you're at in your family dynamic, right? Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and you're like, you know what? I love this and I'm going to continue this and I'm going to homeschool my kids. But what does that look like? Or you're like, you know what? Times are tough. I need to go back to work and I need to either send my kids to school or I need to find an alternative so I can work in some capacity. What does that look like, right? So many of us could be in this crosshair kind of like decision-making stage, right? And I would love to know about that. I would love to talk it out with you. I would love to pray with you. And I would just love to say, like, share some encouragement today, because I'm going to talk about that a lot today, because I found myself in this position. I found myself in an opportunity that sounded great, but for some reason, it just didn't sit right with me. So we're going to talk about this today and how we need to listen and, understand, like, all right, what are my options here? What can I do? And what does this look like? And then I'm going to share with you how God just showed up big time twice this week. So this opportunity came up a couple weeks ago, but I had a meeting on Monday, Memorial Day, and then God showed up twice this week. And then this week on our sermon, I heard him loud and clear. So I'm going to share all of that with you today and ways that, maybe it could help you whenever you're in these moments of what decision do I make? Because being in limbo is so hard. I know that I've been in that limbo kind of stage where it's like, you don't know what's going on. You don't know what decision to make. You don't know where the situation is going. And it's like, heavy. It's like, oh my goodness, I don't know what is wrong, but something is wrong, right? And so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. But let's bring it back to you and your family right now, okay? Because when you are coming to this, you have to ask yourself, does this still work? Is this still the best option for my family? And like I said, we talked about many different options. Homeschool, public school, private school, co-op, no co-op, stay at home, work at home, work from home, right? Or work out of the home. And there's so many other decisions that you can make, right? I'm really just focusing on your kids right now, but we can talk about so many other decisions within the home. So this could apply to many different things. But I remember so distinctly when my kids were little, and we were still in Pittsburgh, and I met someone that homeschooled. And I think I've shared this story a couple times, but it fits here very well, and I think it's worth repeating because this phrase comes up for me all the time. I think about this often, and I share it often with friends and clients, and it's just very important because you have to ask yourself at the end of the day, at the end of the year, at the end of the season, does this still work for my family? So I met a mom that had homeschooled her children and they were already out of school, out of college, and had good jobs. And this was before 2020. So really before the whole, everyone was homeschooling in 2020. And some people saw the value and the benefit. And then some people said, no way, I cannot homeschool my kids, right? I was starting to lean, even before 2020, I was starting to lean to, because I quit my teaching job and I was already teaching at home preschool. I was already creating curriculum, and I was starting to see that benefit of me being home with my children and educating them. I was already doing it. And I was like, so what's really going to change? Nothing. Like, it's going to continue because we were already doing that. But it was not really talked about. Not a lot of people I knew homeschooled. And it was kind of that like, oh, are you sure you're going to homeschool? What about this? What about that? So socialization, that's a big one. We always get that question. And how are they going to learn certain skills? And right, we can debunk all of those. We've done that in an episode and we could go and do it again and again, right? But I remember having this conversation with my friend, and she had opened a co-op back in Colorado or wherever she was before. And she said, every year I asked myself, does this still make sense for my family? And I was like, wow. She was like, so, because you know me, guys, I'm a planner. I want to think 5 years ahead and prep everything out, which is not good, by the way. It has not served me well. It's better to stay in the moment, get the task and the project done at hand, and keep working. It's great to have a vision and it's great to have a plan, but I was a lot of times working on that vision and plan before I was taking care of things that were at hand. And I have since learned how to reel it back in, focus on the projects at hand, and make sure they're aligned with those big goals. And we're going to talk about that later today too. So as she was asking me this question, she said, at the end of the year, that's all you have to ask yourself. Does this still make sense for my family? Are we going to continue homeschooling, or are we going to look at different alternatives? And whether that's going back to public school, whether that's finding a tutor, whether that is finding a co-op or a different group of friends, right? Because one of the things you have to think about as your kids get older, their friends are most likely going to change. Some kids, yes, they've had friends since the time they were little, but their interests change. And I know that I had to do that for my own kids, where instead of my friends, like we had this group and all of our kids were about the same age. The girls were about the same age. The boys were about the same age. And so it was great. We would all get together. Everyone would play great. They would have a great time. The moms would have a great time. It was perfect. Until the kids started having different interests. And my kids started theater and they're like, oh my goodness, Mom, we love this. And we have found friends here that, have the interest that we have. Or, just you have to think about that too, is as your kids get older, they're changing and their friend group may change. So think about that as you are going into this next season, right? Are we looking for different friends? Are we looking for different groups? Maybe, I would have never thought, I don't want to say never, but I don't know that I would have really put my kids in theater. That wouldn't have been like a first primary choice for me. I would have always thought sports, right? That was always kind of like, okay, what sport do you want to play? But for them to be in theater, they're loving that. And they're finding a whole new side. I'm seeing a whole new side, right? And just their creativity. So different things like that. Keep in mind, what are their interests? What are the things that they like? Yes, we want to develop skills in different areas, but sometimes lean into the things that they love. If they're good at chess, find a chess group for them. If you homeschool, start putting that into some groups in your area and say, hey, I have a 10-year-old that loves chess. Anyone else out there that have, kids around his or her age that would want to get together and play chess? It may not be a top priority for you, but it's something that your kids are interested in, right? So just kind of thinking about this. So anyway, she would ask that question, and I have since shared that question over and over again, right? Remember, at the end of the year, revisit and see what works best for you. So that has come up multiple times. I want you guys to lean into where is the best fit for my kids right now? Because sometimes things change and sometimes things look different than what you thought they were going to look like. Okay? So for me, I had this great business opportunity. and it had presented itself about 2 weeks ago. And I was like, great, this is awesome. It's very similar to the goal that's on my vision board, right? Very similar. And I was like, this may be a great opportunity. I meet with them and I look at the space and we come up with different ideas and visions. And I was like super pumped and excited until I got back in the car with the kids. And I said, what do you guys think? And I was like asking them for not only their thoughts. I mean, obviously I want to hear what they have to say, but almost like an approval. Like, yeah, Mom, we really like this, or we really thought this was a good idea, right? Now, I wouldn't take just their word for it, but I kind of was like looking for that because I confide in them. They know a lot about my business. They know a lot about my vision. And obviously, they're a huge part of my day, right? Everything that I do is with them when it comes to their education, their activities. So they have a say in what's going on, right? So as I leave and I start talking to my husband about it and I start sharing with a few select friends, trusted friends that I reached out to, because I did not want to share this information to too many people and get too many ideas and too much feedback, right? Opinions, I should say, from many different people. So 4 people I shared this with. And 2 business owners that homeschool both were like, Christine, is this really aligned? And I started to feel this heaviness even before, like as I was sharing this, with them, I was feeling this heaviness where it was like, I don't know. I don't know if this is aligned. And I kept praying and I asked the Lord and I said, please, Lord, open my eyes. Please speak to me so clearly that I know that this is of you, that this is what I should be doing. And I would pray about discernment all the time. Like, what is discernment? Lord, please give me the discernment. And guys, I can't make any of this up. Okay. 2 times this week, the Lord has showed up so clear. And today in church, our Pastor Dr. Marty Baker, talked about discernment. I'm gonna refer to our sermon multiple times, and I'm gonna read some scripture today because it was so spot on. So the sermon today was slow down before you decide. I mean, guys, that right there in itself, I knew right away that I was like, okay, Lord, I'm listening. My ears are wide open. And one of the first things that Pastor Marty said was discernment is a God-given ability to tell the difference between a good idea and a God idea. And I was like, whoa, all right, I'm taking lots of notes today. I know it. So and he said that, he's like, a lot of times, we hear the word discernment and we might not know what that really means. And I was like, yeah, that's probably right. Like, I think I have an idea of what it means, but I would love to know more. And that's what he shared today. And I was like, I love it. I love it. So I'm all ears. I'm paying attention, right? So let's step back. Let's go back a little bit. So throughout this week, I had been asking for discernment, right? And then today I got loud and clear what discernment actually is. It's either a good idea or a God idea, right? Or it's the difference between a good idea and a God idea. So I would pray and I said, Lord, is this the right next step? Is this a stepping stone to reach my big goals? Or is this a distraction from reaching my goals? And I want you guys to think about that. And I want you to pray about it or just journal it and think about it. Okay? So just write that down and say, is this a stepping stone and the right next step, or is this a distraction? And that could be many, many things for you. It could be a distraction from your family, from your work, from your health, from your business. There's so many ways that it can be a distraction from your marriage, right? Or is it a stepping stone? Is it the right next step? So as I was praying this, I was thinking about this and I said, Lord, I don't know. Please speak to me so clearly. So this past week, and I'm going to read you a verse and I'm going to read the notes that go with it. This past week, I read my devotions for the day. And this is Philippians 12. And this was not even what I was reading. Okay, this was not, let's see. No, it's not even on here. But so happened to be wherever I was reading, I think in Isaiah, it led me to Philippians. Okay, so I go to Philippians 3:12 and it says, not that I have already obtained all of this or have already arrived at my goal, but I press on to take hold of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. That spoke to me big time because I felt like I was straining. I felt like if I made this decision, I was pushing, right? I was just going to make it work, even though I didn't really need to, right? So that spoke to me. I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. So then as I go down to my notes, because I have a study Bible, I'm still learning and diving into the word, and I want to learn and I want to actually understand it. So this says here, Paul said that his goal was to know Christ, to be like Christ, and to be all Christ intended for him. This goal absorbed all of Paul's energy. This is a helpful example for us. We should not let anything take our eyes off of our goal, knowing Christ. With the single-mindedness of an athlete in training, we must lay aside everything harmful and forsake anything that may distract us from living like Christ. What is holding you back? And guys, I read that and I was like, okay, I saw the words there. I saw goals and distractions. And I was like, okay, was this a sign, Lord? Was this a sign? Is this a distraction? Because if I'm working toward the main goal of what you have called me to do, to teach, to open academies, to, help families worldwide, help families in my area. Guys, I've got big goals, lots of goals. And one thing that Pastor Marty said at one point, it wasn't this week, but he has said this before. He said, when you know your goals are so big and so out of this world, like so out of reach, you know that that's from the Lord because you know that it's hard to obtain those without him. And I was like, okay. Guys, I'm telling you, every time I listen to a sermon from Pastor Marty, I'm like, he's speaking to my heart. So I am going to share the sermon, even if I have to get back in and re-edit the show notes. I will share the sermon here when I have a link for it because it was so good. And if you are listening to this and the sermon is not in the show notes, find me on social media because I will share that with you as soon as it is available because I feel like it was so good. It was so spot on. So that's kind of where I was. And I want you guys to think about this. If you are at a spot where you are like, what's the right next step? What should I do next? And then a decision comes up or an opportunity comes up and you say, is this a stepping stone or is this a distraction? Is this the direction I should be going? Or is this taking me away from where I should be going? And I'll just have to share this. I was talking to a friend and our other friend recommended this. And she said, okay, think about the good moments and think about the hard moments. So if you find yourself in this position where you're not sure what to do, write this down. What's the right next step? And then write down all the good things about this and write down all the things that are not so good. a pros and a con, right? Or even think about where were the moments that brought me joy and where were the moments that brought me frustration? And how can I change that? How can I fix that? So I started thinking about my situation and I said, if I take this opportunity, is it going to solve a problem for me? And I had to ask myself that multiple times and I had to think about that. I had to write down the pros and the cons. I had to say, well, I would be driving an hour a day. I could meet new clients. I could introduce my curriculum to other families, right? But then I have to be out of my home. My kids, would be with me, but I wouldn't be solely teaching them, which is not a bad thing. Definitely not a bad thing, but it was a consideration for me for sure. I love teaching my kids. I would be able to teach other kids if I were to take this opportunity, my kids and other children. So as you can see, there were both wins. There were wins here for sure, but then there were things that were like on the border. And it was like, I don't think that those are outweighing what this heaviness is that I'm feeling. And I talked to some friends, like I said, some very trusted friends that gave me some real feedback, not the fluff, not the, do whatever you think. Is this aligned? This was your goal. This is the goal that you told me about. Is this still your goal? I said, well, yeah, actually it is. But it could work, right? And I started making those, well, it could fit into here and it could allow me to reach that goal. But was I stretching? Maybe a little. But then I had some friends say to me, you know what? When an opportunity comes to you and you are 100% in, I can hear it in your voice. And they said, I didn't hear that in your voice. I hear hesitation. I hear confusion. I said, yeah, I am confused. I am hesitant. This seems like a good opportunity, but it also seems like a big commitment. And I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Not that I can't commit to something, but am I committing to something on my terms or on someone else's terms? And I didn't think it was the right opportunity. So then I slow down, right? And I just sat with it for a bit. And I felt pretty confident in my decision to say, you know what? I'm going to keep the door open. I'm not going to close it completely, but I can't make that big of a commitment, right? I need to make sure that I'm focusing on my goals here. I'm going to open my own classes up. I'm going to do a summer series. I'm going to go back to having virtual classes. I did all of these things for my business. And I can do it from home and I can teach my kids. And I was like, okay, I feel pretty confident in this decision. And then I go to church today. Guys, what I'm going to share with you, I shared a little bit, but you will not believe the message that I heard today that I was like, okay, Lord, I truly, truly hear you loud and clear. All right. I'm going to read some of the notes from today because they were so, so good. One of the first verses that was read was 1 Kings 3:9. And it says, so give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? This was Solomon, talking about Solomon. And as I heard that, I was like, yes, please, Lord, help me to know between right and wrong. And this goes for all of us. This doesn't just go for my story and my situation, right? This goes for our children. Help them to have a discerning heart, to know what is right and wrong every single time. Help us to have a discerning heart, to know what is right and wrong. Our spouses, our friends, right? We don't want to get caught up in this in between of, well, maybe I made the right decision. No, I want to know. And here are some things that stuck out to me so much today. This one said, hold on, let me get my notes here. Because, guys, it was so good. So this was all Pastor Marty, Dr. Marty Baker. It says, I need the wisdom beyond myself. I need to test what is influencing me. I need to trust people to help me see the blind spots. That I needed. I needed that so much. And like, as he said that, I thought immediately of the friends that were able to say, hey, wait a second. What about this? I was like, you're right. What about that? I don't know. I'm going to pray about it. Here's the last one that really got me. I need to slow down and follow peace, not pressure. That right there basically stopped me in my tracks. Because that has been what I've been building. For 6 years, I have been building peace, not pressure. How can I take the pressure of this world, keep it at arm's length for me and my children, so we have peace and joy in our home, and we are educating with ease? And this situation, this example, or this opportunity came up, and would that take some of my peace away? It probably was going to. Because I had to make a decision onto, am I going to teach outside of the home, or am I going to keep my peace inside of the home? And like I said, that stopped me right there. And then there was one more phrase. It says, just because it might look like a great plan doesn't mean it's the right path. And I was like, that's so true. Sometimes something looks so shiny. And guys, I've fallen into this trap multiple times. And I don't want to say, well, that's why I'm where I'm at, right? There's so many unfinished projects that I'm working on because I kept abandoning ship. And, oh, you know what? This over here looks like a great idea. This over here looks like a great idea. Let me go do that. Maybe that'll help. Maybe this will help. I kept abandoning my projects until this year. And this was another test, I think, to say, you know what? Stay focused on your goals. Stay focused on the path that you are on. And the reward, it's going to be so great. Because that's how I feel. I feel like it's one of those, like, if I keep changing gears, you know, you keep thinking the grass is greener on the other side, right? Oh, the grass is greener on the other side until you get there and you're like, wait a second, it's still out of reach. I want something else. I know that I've done that. I've had lots of great opportunities, but I didn't finish some of the big opportunities that I was working on. And right now, I feel like I'm so close. And one of my dear friends said that to me. They're like, you're so close, Christine. You're so close to finishing so many of these projects. I said, I know, I can feel it. And they're like, and when that happens, that reward, that feeling inside you is just going to be amazing. And I said, you're right, I know. So I want you to think about that. For you, let's come back to your situation, whatever that situation may be. Because I remember I went up to the pastor today and I said, were you like watching my Instagram stories? Because your sermon today followed my week to a T. And he was like, I'm glad, that it spoke to you. He's like, this applies to a lot of people in many different situations. And I'm sure that as I'm speaking and as we're listening to different situations, we can put ourselves right in that spot and say, yeah, this applies to where I'm at right now. Right now, I'm trying to decide, should I put my kids back in school because it was so hard when I was homeschooling? Or the opposite. Should I pull my kids out of school because I don't like what they're teaching? I don't like what they're exposed to. I don't like what they're seeing. These are all major concerns. Absolutely. And I am right here to walk alongside you every step of the way. So here's my advice when you get into these crosshairs, right? These decision-making moments, because you might get a lot of them this summer. Now remember, you might have a lot of free time, and it's easy to say yes because there's more free time. I know that that's kind of how I was feeling, right? Right now, theater's over, piano's over, all of the things that the kids were doing are over, and we have a lot of free time at home. And we get to do the play dates and the pool dates and, right, all of those fun things that we're doing. But if I were to take on a decision right now, that's going to change what the fall looks like for us. And what do I want it to look that way? And then here's a little inside track that maybe some of you didn't know. I am going back for my doctorate degree in January. That's going to change my schedule drastically. And I needed to take that in consideration too. So any situation that you are in, I am here for you. I will pray with you. I will talk it over with you. I will help you journal it out. So find me in the Facebook group, send me a message on an Instagram or Facebook, and let's chat. But here is my little advice as if you were in this situation right now, you could do these things right now. 1, if you pray about it. That's probably my top thing is pray about it. Ask the Lord, help me to know if this is from you and what I need to do. And pray for him to give you a sign. I've heard this recently within the past few years. He comes to you in a dream, in a quote, a scripture, a sermon like he did for me through a friend, right? Listen. And that was one of the things. I'm going to jump to this last thing. It said, God speaks loud enough for a willing ear to hear. And that was from Pastor Marty Baker. I'll probably say that again, but it applies right here, okay? Talk to friends and family that you trust. Ones that you know are going to give you an honest answer and honest feedback. Not just a bunch of fluff and say, yeah, whatever you want to do, whatever you think is best. You need some people that are going to be real with you and help you to see your blocks, because I needed that. But again, you don't want to talk to too many people and overshare. I've done that before, and I've gotten so much feedback that then I was even more confused, right? So talk to the trusted people in your life. Wait to respond. And this was from our sermon today. It says, this is a paraphrase, but if you feel rushed to make a decision for a deadline, you may be making a rash decision out of fear, or you're afraid of missing out. And I know that I've done that before. I've signed up for things that I said, yeah, I need this. I want to do this because I don't want to miss out. I don't want to miss out on this opportunity because what if that won't happen again? I don't want to miss out on this experience or this class or, right? Because it may not happen again. That fear, that lack of abundance, right? Scarcity mindset. So take some time and wait to respond. If you have to make a rash decision, it might not be the right time. And if it's not the right time, just know that the Lord is going to open the door when the time is right. That if that door were to close, then it's not the right time. I know for me, I can look back at my own business and my own life and say, oh, I wish I would have done this differently. I wish I didn't just jump into X, Y, and Z, right? But guess what? If I did that, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. The relationship that I have with my kids may not be as strong, right? There's so many different things. Like, could I have been in a better position with the business? Maybe, right? Things could have been a little more organized or whatever. But that could have changed the relationship I have with my kids. And I don't want that. So just keep those things in mind. The door may close, but it may not close forever. And a different door may open with a better opportunity. So, and I asked myself as I was going through this situation, this, opportunity, what problem is this solving for my family? And in this case, it wasn't solving a problem. It was actually adding to stress, right? Potential stress, right? It was potentially taking time away from my kids, away from their education, and away from my clients. Sure, I could have got new clients and I could have been meeting new families, but what about the ones I already have in my space already? What if I just took that time and started nurturing the ones that are in my space instead of just trying to chase more? And that could apply to anything. I know that I've worked so hard to build this freedom and flexibility that I have, and I'm not willing to risk that right now. And the final thing is journal it. What is it that you want, and does it align with your long-term goals? I have a friend that always says, Christine, you're like a slow cooker, slow and steady. You just keep working towards your goals a little bit at a time because, guys, like I said, they are big, audacious goals. I want to help families worldwide with the EduPlay Learning method and curriculum. I want to help families locally in the Augusta, Georgia area, as well as the Pittsburgh area with the curriculum and the events and the education that I have and the opportunity to teach in person because I still love that. That's what lights me up. I love to interact with the kids and the families and make those connections. I've got big goals. So slow and steady is going to win the race. People always say, oh, they're overnight success. Guys, it's not. It's, that's what it looks like from the outside, but there's so much work that goes into the success. Years and years and years, and one small little piece at a time. I believe that I took too many distractions and has veered me off the actual path. But we're almost there. And we're just continuing to get closer and closer and closer to these big, big visions and big goals. And that's fine, as long as I stay the path. So one last thing I'm just going to leave you with. God speaks loud enough for a willing ear to hear. That was Pastor Marty Baker. So I know I talked a lot about him today, but guys, it was such a good sermon. I needed it. It spoke to my heart. And I hope this episode spoke to you and your heart as well and is helping you in whatever situation you are in right now. So as you wrap up the school year and as you go into the new school year, I just want you to know that I'm here, that I want you to take, I'm encouraging you to take one decision at a time, slow and steady. And I would love to know where you are at. So don't forget, join the Facebook group, the Home Education with Ease Facebook group. Let's chat about it. Let's get connected. And I am just wishing you all the best. And I know that you will make the best decision. Thank you for tuning in to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling empowered and ready to take the next steps on your home education journey. Your support means the world to me. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. For even more resources, be sure to join the free Facebook group, Home Education with Ease, and visit eduplaylearning.com to explore our programs and subscription kits. You can find the links and any other links mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. Remember, you're not alone. This community is here to support you every step of the way.